Welcome back, everyone. In this episode, I will discuss the concept of compliance and cyber risk ruining your business. I'll present a number of risks that are inextricably linked and risks that indeed a cyber attack can trigger. We'll focus on financial risk and reputational risk, although I've listed a third around medical or hospital liability risk as a result of a med-mal lawsuit. I won't go into that in any detail today because we covered it in our last episode. As a reminder of where we are in our journey, I present this slide. I'm currently contemplating 30 episodes. I may flex to delete, add, change some along the way, but as a quick reminder, all the episodes will be posted on this YouTube channel. If you've not already done so, I would encourage you to subscribe so that you may be notified of any new materials or episodes that we post. Secondarily, please provide any feedback you may have on the YouTube channel. And last but not least, if you have any friends or colleagues who may benefit from this material, please feel free to share the link to the channel with them and encourage them to join us through these episodes. As illustrated by the image in the upper right on this slide, some would say a perfect storm is building. Cyber risk appears at the center, and I purposely place it there because it may trigger any of or all of the other risks that are illustrated in this mosaic. Cyber risk can damage your reputation, it can damage your balance sheet, inhibit cash flow, ruin your P&L, it can have an adverse effect on your ability to attract and retain talent, it can create third-party liability. As I mentioned a moment ago in the last episode, we did talk about professional and hospital malpractice lawsuits. Even though it's highlighted in red here, I'm not going to go into it in detail today. First of all, by way of a couple of examples of the financial consequences of an attack or a breach, let me cite two cases that I wrote about in my book. The first one is St. Joseph Health System based in Orange County, California. As a result of a server with PHI that was exposed to the internet, that triggered an OCR investigation, which in turn caused legal expenses, credit monitoring expenses, identity theft protection expenses. In fact, monies had to be spent to do the right kinds of things, implement the right safeguards that ought to have been implemented in the beginning. In fact, the last number I have regarding St. Joseph Health System had that organization expending over $37 million in out-of-pocket, unbudgeted expense. The next case that I wrote about was Anthem. That involved a breach involving 78 million records, in turn triggered an OCR investigation, resulted in a $16 million, the record-setting settlement agreement with the Office for Civil Rights, among other expenses that tallied over $424 million. This is beginning to look like real money. As an example of a case involving reputational damage, I would cite Henry Ford Health System. We previously worked with their Chief Information Security and Privacy Officer, who was a member of our Cyber Risk Management Bootcamp faculty. And Meredith used to deliver a presentation she called Beauty in the Breaches. And among other things, she talked about a 9-month period in which Henry Ford Health System experienced 3 breaches that required notification to the Office for Civil Rights as required by the HIPAA breach notification rule. It was upon their notice to the media, again as required in the breach notification rule, that their competitor down the street, Detroit Medical Center, launched a media campaign that communicated essentially the message that why would you entrust your health to an organization that can't take care of your health information? That's an example of both some reputational damage that Henry Ford Health System suffered, as well as a competitor trying to drive a wedge between that organization's care delivery services and all their patients out there. So I want to move on now. What I want to do is to illustrate how a cyber event can trigger a really bad downward spiral for an organization. This is essentially a story about how bad things can happen to good companies. The company in question here is Accretive Health. Now, if you go and Google Accretive Health today, you will not find them, and that's part of the story. Accretive Health was primarily providing revenue cycle management services to its customers when a bad event happened. Here's a quick chronology of events. It all started in July of 2011 when a laptop was stolen from an employee's car. The laptop contained lots of sensitive information, including protected health information. The upshot, as you look across the chronology, is that numerous lawsuits followed, including one by the Minnesota State Attorney General. There were executive firings, there were job losses, there was a major P&L hit. In 2014, the organization lost almost $80 million, and in 2015, they lost $84 million. They were ultimately delisted from the New York Stock Exchange, and the upshot is that a stolen laptop drove a 73% stock drop or loss of shareholder value. In 2017, the company was reincarnated as R1 RCM Incorporated. Want a slightly more up-to-date story? Consider the case of American Medical Collection Agency. Between 2018 and 2019, they experienced a system hack. It exposed the data of up to 20 million individuals. In 2019, the parent company declared bankruptcy. And they noted in the court filing, and I'll read, the company had incurred enormous expenses that were beyond the ability of the debtor to bear. So by way of wrap up, what we covered in this session was the notion that compliance and cyber risk can actually ruin a business. Pick your most likely exposures from the mosaic that I showed on the previous slide. Keep in mind that these risks are inextricably linked. And what we really didn't talk about was the fact that the Office for Civil Rights has collected over $130 million to date in a combination of primarily negotiated settlement agreements as well as civil money penalties. As always, I'm ending the session with suggested actions and references and resources that you can see on the slide. In the next episode, if today we talked about risks that can ruin your business, I'll talk about risks that can ruin your day and possibly ruin your life. This IT problem can get very personal. Specifically, we'll talk about three elements. We'll talk about fiduciary responsibility, we'll talk about duty of care, and we'll talk about derivative lawsuits. Until then, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Be well, be secure, and I'll see you in the next session. Thank you.